Good morning, 90th grade students. I hope you are doing well. Today we will talk about the first exam material. So let's start with the first exam material. By the way, the first exam material will be included page 136 and 137, in addition, page 12. So let's start. First of all, we will see the calculations with density. So the vocabulary here are density, mass, volume, metal, wood, measurement, measuring cylinders, cuboid, displacement. First of all, and that's important thing, density, it's the mass of a piece of a material with volume of 1 centimeter cubed. So be careful of this. The mass of the piece of a metal is greater than the mass of a piece uh, of a wood if they have the same volume. So if we have two blocks of a material, one of them is a wood and the other one is, imagine this is the same like this. So if we have two of them, one of them is wood and the other one is metal. So if they have the same volume, imagine this is the same volume, but the mass of the wood is less than the mass of the metal. So what about the density? If we talk about the density, and it's a description of the characteristic of the metal or the piece or the thing, so the density of a metals is greater than the density of a wood. What that means? Let's continue. So, afwan. That means that the volume here is the same, but for the mass, we put it here and the density is here, we can see when we raise the mass, we will raise the density. So the mass, when the volume is constant, the mass changes the density. And we talked about the density as the mass of a piece of a material with a volume of 1 centimeter cubed. That's it. So let's move to the next part. Effect of heating and cooling the material. If the mass stays and it's like this, constant, fixed mass for the material. Now we will see if we heat the material, what will happen to the volume? If I heat things or I raise the temperature of the thing, the volume will increase. So from the equation that I told you about, that density equal mass over volume, let's write it with more clarified lines. I'll write like this. So if the density equal mass over volume, and let's make bigger, and I'll make it in the back. Okay. Now, if I'm talking about the volume increased and it's in the denominator of this equation, what will happen to the density? The density will direct decrease. They are inverse proportional. So علاقة عكسية between the volume and the density here. And we are talking about a fixed mass for the material. What if we cooling the volume? What will happen to the density? Direct, if we cool the object, the volume will decrease. So if I decrease the volume, نقصه, what will happen to the density? Direct, it will increase. So that's the relation between both of them. So if we want to measure the volume of the material or the object, we should know that we have two types of objects. First type is regular, طبيعي. And we have cuboid and cube. We have to focus on in this lesson. And the irregular shapes or objects. We can see here, and at the cube thing or the cube object, it's like this. If we write cube, you can see it more clarify. And this is the cube that we have. And if I see the cube like this, we can see that it has the length the same for all the sides of the cube. Okay, Mr. Adam, what about the cuboid? Let's see the cuboid in a different formula or in different shape, but almost the same as the cube, but with a different length sides. We can see that here we have the cuboid. It has a length, width, and height. That's the difference between the cube and cuboid if you want to see the difference. So if I want to calculate the volume cube for the cuboid and the volume for the cube, first thing would be in my mind that I have to multiply all the sides together and the height. We can see from here that this is for the cuboid, but it's also for the cube, but the difference that the cube, it has the length multiplied with the length multiplied with the length. Why, Mr. Adham? Because they have the same value or the same scale or the same measurement or the same, they are the same. So that's the difference between the cuboid and the cube. Now, if we want to talk about the irregular objects, we have to know a big difference. That's if I took a volume of 1 centimeter of an object and put it in a glass of water that is filled to the top, I will see that if I put 1 centimeter cubed of an object, we will lose from the glass of water 1 milliliter of it. So from that, we can know that 1 milliliter is equal to 1 centimeter cubed. So you have to remember this if you want to solve the questions. And we can see the effects of the volume of that object. Let's move to the equation. I know that density is equal mass over volume. And what about the units? If I told you that the unit of the mass is kilogram or gram, what would be for the volume? For the volume, when we are talking about like the cube, its length cubed, it's equal if it's the length is centimeter. So I'm multiplying centimeter 3 times together. So I will have centimeter cubed. So here we can say that this is maybe meter cubed for the kilogram, because if I have kilogram, I have big object, so bigger volume. And if you are talking about the centimeter, if we are talking about gram, we will have centimeter cubed because it's smaller object and it will have a smaller size. So it's centimeter cubed. Let's move to the next thing, that the units of the density will be kilogram per meter cubed or gram per per centimeter cubed. So it's mass over volume. I can get the unit from the equation. Mass over volume give me the density, and so on. So if he told me that I have to calculate the density or volume or mass, it's the same thing. It's from the same equation. So I'm using the same equation, mass and over volume. I will not write it because it's obvious. So if he told me that the length side of the cubic object is 4 centimeter, from that I know that L is equal 4 centimeter. That's the analysis of the question. And the mass is 32. 32 for the mass. What about the density of the object? Now I can find the density like this in an easy way by writing 32 over 4 cubed. And it's easier for us to think about the question before solve it. So 32 over 64, we would have half as an answer. So the answer is half, but we don't have to miss that the units here will be gram per centimeter cubed. So it's an easy question. It's forward question, straightforward question. So let's move to the other part or the next slide. So if I told you the dimensions of the cuboid box, so we have to focus. This is cuboid, not cube. And this is the length, the width, and this is the height. Its mass, it's 18. So, Mr. Adam, what's the difference here? The difference, I can say, the density equal mass over volume. What about the mass? I have it already. It's 18 gram. And what about the volume for the object? It's obvious also. If we remember that the length multiplied with the width multiplied with the height, I'll write the height like this. It's equal 4 multiplied with 3 multiplied with 2, and that's it. So 24, the answer, centimeter cubed, and that's it. So the rest of the solution will just be mathematical things or the calculation things. If we think about it, it's not hard. We have just to think about it and solve it easily. So uh, don't think too much about the question, just solve it and take what you have from the um, things that you have from the question, like the length, width, height, and the mass here, and so on. Here, if I want to solve it, I can say that he gave me the density, and the density is 1.5 kilogram per meter cubed, and we have to find the volume. He asked for what? For the volume. If I start to solve it, I will say D equal M over V. Let's make it capital letter. This is capital letter. Okay. Now we can just move. I will write it in pen. We can see like D equal M over V. If we just move this part here and move this part here, okay, what did you do, Adam? It's mathematical things. Let's see it more clarified by this. I'm just multiplying by V for this side or for the right side, and multiplying with V for the right side, and dividing with D for this side, and dividing with D for this side. It's the same. Why? Why? Because if I remove this with this, it will be the same. Remove this with this, it will be the same. So I did not do anything wrong. So let's see the effect of multiplying these things. I will remove V with V and remove D with D. I will get just V equal M over D. So now I can have the main equation for calculating the volume. If I want the mass will be just D multiplied with V. Try it with yourself and you can get it. So let's move again to the solution. Volume equal. I have the mass, it's 4.5. Okay, Mr. Adam, maybe I don't know the mass. You can see the units. As I told you, the unit is the main thing that you can get it from the question if you don't understand it. If you don't understand the English word, just look for the units. And find the volume here, it's 4.5 kilogram. Okay, what's the density? It's 1.5. So I think the answer will be 3. but 3 what? When we are talking about the often the volume, so we are talking about cubic. And here we have the cubic unit, it's meter cubed. So it's meter cubed. Okay, I didn't focus too much. What should I do to get the meter cubed? Easily, when you are talking about 4.5 kilogram, and here we can see that we have 1.5 kilogram per meter cubed. If we see this, remove them together, put this on the numerator, then we will have meter cubed and so on. Okay. For this question, if we see it like this, we can see that we have the volume of displaced water when an object was pushed underwater, displacement was. So he told me that the object takes or removed 25 milliliter from the water. So that means that the volume equal 25 centimeter cubed. Okay, Adham, how did you get that? If you focus on the first things that we talked about, that 1 centimeter equal 1 milliliter cubed, and remember what I said there, you know why the volume is like this. And if you are given the density of an object, he gave me the density, he asked for the mass. Direct, I have to multiply the density with the volume so I can get the mass. So if he told me that we heated and the volume changed by 1 centimeter, so I have to make this volume that I have here to 26. Why 26, not 24? We are talking about heating the material or the object, so we have to increasing the volume. Direct, what will happen to the density? I can say it will decrease. He asked for the new density. How I can find it? Easily, if I say that the mass that I calculated here, so the mass over volume, the new volume, okay, then we can get the new density. So try to solve it by yourself. I gave you an homework for 345, page 137. So as I told you, the first exam will include 136, 137, and page 12 in addition. So now let's move to the solution for the homework. I can say that all of them is easy, just we have to focus on the question 5. As I gave you that, he told me that he wants the mass and he gave me the volume and density at temperature 10 Celsius. Okay, what should I do, Mr. Adam? Now we have to take the volume and the density at that temperature and just calculating the mass. As the formula that we took, that the mass equal volume multiplied with density or times density, 2,500, 1,000, the density, so we can get one off one. 2.5 million, or 2.5 multiplied with 10 to the power 6 kilogram. We have to focus for the units. Then P is removed. I am not asking for it for you. The density here, if we increasing the volume by heating the object, and he told us that the new temperature is 20 Celsius, so we can see that when we are raising the volume again, what will happen to the density? Direct, it will increase because the volume increased, so the density will decrease. After that, he told me to calculate the density when we are talking about 20 degrees, 20 Celsius degrees. So the new volume changed by 5.0 upon 5.25 meter cubed. What should I do? Just I have to calculate the new volume. What the new volume is 2,500 plus 5.25 meter cubed, and that's the new volume. And you have just to put the mass that you calculated already over the volume that you have it, the new volume. So you have the new density. And that's right, by the way, because at 10 Celsius, the density was 1000. And now we can see that the density decreased to 997.9 kilogram per meter cubed. Now let's talk about the new lesson, which is balanced diets. And this is the vocabulary for the lesson, and you have to focus on them. Uh, Also, you have to read the book page, so be careful about that. Make this as a notation, so read the box page. So the balanced diets, it's when you eat the right amounts of wide variety of foods. So uh, in the world, we don't have just one type of food. We have a lot and wide variety of foods. So you have to eat right amounts of them, not eat one type of food and that's it for all the day. So no sing why that you have to do this because no single food contains all the substance that your body needs. So your body needs a lot of substance, and one of them proteins, carbs, etc., and that's so on. So no foods have the single type of them. What causes malnutrition? Malnutrition, it's like نقص تغذية. The person who has a problem caused by too much or too little of nutrient in his diet will suffer from malnutrition. So you don't have to eat too much from one type of food or too little from one type of food. Each plate. You have to see the page for each plate at photo A, page 12. It contains the variety of food, like fish contains phosphor and so on, and milk contains calcium and so on. So focus, but not too much on it. I'm not asking you to memorize all of that. I'm just asking you to memorize the main parts of substance that your body needs. They are deficiency diseases. They are caused by lack of nutrients for a long time. Here, maybe the main part of the slides, we'll talk about the deficiency diseases that we have, like kwashiorkor. It's lack of protein, night blindness, it's lack of vitamin A, scurvy, it's lack of vitamin C, rickets, it's lack of of calcium and vitamin D, and anemia, it's lack of iron. So focus on the deficiency diseases and what's the cause of them. Read the fact and the homework, you have to do it. And thank you for watching the video. I hope the exam you get a full mark. And see you, my students in science for the 9th grade. And I hope you get a full mark in the exam. Thank you.